I've been a cop for almost 10 years now, and I've seen my fair share of strange and heartbreaking things. But nothing could have prepared me for that night. The words played over in my head as I cruised through the quiet streets, the hum of the patrol car a soft reminder of how mundane most nights could be. My radio crackled to life, but tonight it wasn't routine. The call I received wasn't anything special at first. A gas station had been robbed, a suspect was on the run, and I was in the area. It seemed like just another call, just another night shift, another opportunity to do my job and get back to the station for some much-needed rest. But deep down, I knew that nothing was ever as simple as it seemed. I just didn't realize how true that would be tonight. The gas station was only a few miles away. The streets were eerily quiet as I made my way over. My headlights cut through the night like a knife through darkness, illuminating a path that led straight into the unknown. I parked the car quickly, hopping out and heading toward the gas station. The scene was familiar, yet unsettling. The cashier, a young woman, stood near the entrance, her face pale but unhurt. She told me what had happened. A man, probably in his late 20s, wearing a hoodie and jeans, walked in, grabbed the money from the register, and ran out without a word. No weapon, no real confrontation, just a desperate grab for cash and a quick exit. The woman was still shaken, but relieved that it hadn't turned violent. As I asked more questions, I ran the description through my mind. Late 20s, dark hair, hoodie, jeans. I radioed it in, and within moments, the streets were alive with the sound of sirens, each officer trying to get ahead of the suspect's escape route. I took a left and headed down toward the industrial district, where I knew there were abandoned warehouses. It was the perfect place for someone trying to hide, and I hoped I would catch a glimpse of him before he had a chance to blend into the shadows. I'd been on enough foot chases to know that this was where it could get intense. When you're chasing someone in the dark, you never know what they'll do. You don't know if they'll fight, run, or surrender. As I drove through the empty streets, my mind raced. Every shadow, every flicker of movement in the corner of my eye seemed to be a threat. My fingers gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. And then, just as I reached a stretch of road near a row of warehouses, I saw him. A figure darted between two buildings, his hoodie glowing briefly under the headlights. My heart skipped a beat. "Suspect spotted," I called into the radio. I knew this could end one of two ways. Either I caught him quickly, or this chase would drag on longer than I wanted. But there was no time to think about the what-ifs. I parked the car, slammed the door shut, and ran toward the alley. My legs pumped as I pushed myself harder, faster. I was closing the gap between us, and I could hear his footsteps echoing against the concrete. My mind raced, and I felt my heart pounding in my chest. "Stop, police!" I shouted, trying to get him to turn around to face me to stop running. But he didn't stop. He just kept going, his movements erratic and fast. He was desperate. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't let him get away. I chased him through the alleyway, rounding corners, jumping over debris, feeling my muscles burn as I pushed harder to keep up. I watched him leap over a fence ahead of me, and with little hesitation I followed, landing hard on the other side. He was fast, but I was faster. The alley opened up into a narrow passage between two industrial buildings. He had nowhere to go. This was it. I had him cornered. As I closed in, I could feel the tension build. It was a standoff now. He was breathing heavily, his chest heaving as he turned around to face me. My flashlight illuminated his face as he looked up at me, his wide eyes locking with mine. And then, in that moment, my heart nearly stopped. The world tilted around me, and everything else faded into the background. "Nathan?" I whispered, the name falling from my lips before I could even stop myself. He froze, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. "Ryan?" My breath caught in my throat as the world around me seemed to crash. There was no mistaking it. Standing in front of me, ragged and out of breath, was my younger brother Nathan. The same kid I had lost track of over 15 years ago, the one I had searched for when I turned 18, the one I had never stopped thinking about. And now he was standing here, a man who had just robbed a gas station. The years had changed him. He was older, tougher, but underneath all of that, it was still Nathan. The kid I used to look after, the kid who had once looked up to me. I didn't know what to feel in that moment. Shock, disbelief, confusion, but the one thing I felt most deeply was heartbreak. "Nathan," I repeated, taking a step toward him. "What? What are you doing?" He laughed bitterly, running a hand through his unkempt hair. His gaze never left me. "What do you think, Ryan? Surviving, the way I've had to my whole life." I couldn't process his words. I stepped closer, my mind racing. "I looked for you. After I turned 18, I searched everywhere for you. I didn't know where you were." His eyes flickered, but he didn't let the pain show. "It doesn't matter. Nobody cared back then. Nobody cares now." I shook my head. "I care. I always cared." And in that moment, his tough exterior cracked just for a second. I saw it, the boy who had once been my responsibility, the one I had always tried to protect. He looked away, his shoulders sagging as he took a deep breath, the weight of everything he had carried for so long coming to the surface. "I didn't know what else to do," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I'm so tired, Ryan." I felt a lump form in my throat. This wasn't just a criminal in front of me. This was my brother, the kid who had been lost to the system, to the streets, to a world that had never cared for him. And now, standing in front of me, he was broken. I stepped forward, my hand trembling as I reached out and placed it on his shoulder. "You don't have to do this anymore," I said softly, my voice full of compassion. "Let me help you. Please. You don't have to be alone in this." For a long moment, we just stood there in silence. Then, without warning, Nathan collapsed into my arms. His tears soaked my shirt as he clung to me, his sobs shaking his body. In that moment, all of the pain, all of the years of separation, all of the trauma he had endured, came pouring out. I didn't arrest him that night. I didn't bring him to the station. Instead, I listened to his story. He told me everything. The foster homes, the bad choices, the years of survival. He wasn't just a criminal. He was a victim of circumstances, of a system that had failed him at every turn. Nathan still had to face the consequences of his actions. He knew that, and I knew that. But he didn't have to face them alone. He had me now. As we drove away from that alley, I promised myself that I would never stop fighting for him. For my brother. And maybe, just maybe that night, life had a second chance for both of us. This story is a reminder that life often takes us down unexpected paths, but it's never too late for redemption, for healing, for love. We all have our struggles, our battles, our burdens to carry, but no one should have to carry them alone. Family, forgiveness, and second chances are what hold us together. And sometimes it takes the most unexpected moments to remind us of what really matters. If you've ever faced hardship or felt alone in your struggles, remember that there is always hope. There is always someone out there who cares. You are never alone in this world. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and subscribe for more stories of redemption, second chances, and the unexpected twists of life. Keep believing, keep fighting, and always remember that family and love can heal even the deepest wounds.